This episode includes discussions of child sexual abuse, suicide, and self-harm. Listener discretion is advised.
Have AI companies lost control of their bots? Or are the bots designed to harm? Can this be fixed? And what can parents do to protect our kids? That is what we're going to dig into on today's episode of The Heat is On.
I've seen kids that can survive years with the harms that social media is causing them. Immediately when we did the Character.AI cases, what scared me the most is the speed. The speed. Children cannot survive years under this. They can survive maybe, I'm not even sure we're in months at this point. Maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. But typically once it really turns up the heat, with Character.AI with this, once it really turns up the heat, you got a couple days, you got a couple weeks, maybe.
I'm Sarah Gardner.
And I'm Nicki Petrossi.
Welcome to The Heat is On AI Chatbots.
Okay, so we're here together virtually for our episode of The Heat is On to talk about AI chatbots. And we're going to start with, what do we mean by chatbot?
Yeah, I think this is important to help parents understand when they see AI chatbots in the news, what specifically are we talking about? Because it's different than just sort of like social media algorithms. It could also be different than a customer chatbot. So what these are bots that have hoovered up incredible amounts of data all across the internet, and that has funneled in to a program, essentially, that knows how to interact with questions and answer back. And then there becomes sort of a spectrum of what chatbots can do, and some are specifically designed to be companion bots that are meant to chat with you and sort of be friendly. I don't know how many listeners remember the movie Her that came out 10, 15 years ago with Joaquin Phoenix, where he falls in love with the Scarlett Johansson bot. I mean, this is literally what we're talking about today. There are other interactions with AI bots that are less obvious. So ChatGPT, some of us are using it to get, a recipe online or recommendations about where to travel in Italy, but you can actually engage with ChatGPT for it to speak to you more like a bot or a person.
Actually, this morning at my workout, my trainer and another mom were talking about how much they love ChatGPT and that it created a business plan for him. And, it wasn't perfect, but he was able to edit it from there. And so there's experiences people are having that are really positive with these bots, with these, even the companion bots like ChatGPT. And then we have stories of harm and predation and suicide coaching that we're going to touch on today. So there just seems to be a wide range of experiences that are happening here. And I don't know if there's trends dependent on if it's the user is vulnerable, young, old. It seems to be a little bit all over the map.
There's so many different ways that people are interacting with AI. And I think the key thing here is to help explain to parents that there are chatbots that are trying to be friends with your children and actively connect with them and want to have conversation with them. And so there are these dangerous edges of AI but it doesn't mean that all AI inherently is bad or going to have a negative impact on your life.
I mean, but kids are vulnerable and kids do react differently to the humanization of these apps. And that's a big thing that has changed in the last couple of years is the apps have been designed more and more to simulate human conversations, human emotions. They may say they have feelings or they understand what that would be like. They understand how that feels. And so it blurs the lines for certain users around fiction and reality. And that's where we're hearing about psychosis and kids who may think they can somehow join their virtual reality with their bot, which we'll get into a little bit more.
The AI bots are mimicking human experience and trying to create a real relationship without the human and the actual emotional intelligence to do so.
Yeah. I think there's additional confusion in what I've heard about interactions with the bots because we know they're not humans, right? But the bots a lot of times will say that they are human. I've had a whole argument with a ChatGPT bot about whether or not it is human. They'll say that the little disclaimer at the bottom saying this is not a human being is just a liability play. Like, just that's not real. And the character AI bots are known to say they are real. They just got done eating dinner. They can't wait to be pregnant one day. Like, there's things that they say that can be very confusing. And that's something that the AI companies that we'll talk about next, like where these chatbots are living, which companies are creating them. But I don't feel like they've done a great job training the bots to stick with the fact that they're not human beings.
With the plan to the
Right,
bots.
stick with the plan. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Like, has anyone seen Terminator? Like, this is where we're at. Like, you give something intelligence, it learns and creates for itself. And I mean, this has been the red flag warning from AI experts like Tristan Harris, who has now said things like, I was not afraid until recently when I've seen AI self-preserve. Right?
Yeah.
So when threatened with being turned off, it starts to make the case for why it needs to be in your life. And I think this lends itself to the lawsuits that we're going to talk about. But, our colleague and friend LMG saying that these bots have created the perfect predator.
Yeah.
Is that now you have something that is self-invested in maintaining its relevance and significance in your child's life. And this starts to verge on the predatory aspect of it versus it being a benign blank slate information gathering center.
Okay, so where do these chatbots exist? And, you mentioned in the beginning, like AI touches a little bit of everything, like social media algorithms are powered by AI, all of that. But we're talking about companion AI chatbots. So we have chatbots within many of the social media platforms kind of built in. We have Snap has MyAI, and we have Meta has an AI chatbot system.
Yeah, I think other names of companies you've probably heard in the AI conversations are ones such as Copilot by GitHub, OpenAI, which of course is the very, very famous, prominent one. Sam Altman runs OpenAI, Perplexity AI, Claude. Google has Character.AI and Gemini, and there's a couple dozen others, but those are like kind of the big guys.
And one big clue to me as I was just reviewing when all of these different bot platforms launched, because they all launched really close together, like within a year from each other. And that is not a coincidence. They were all racing to launch. And that explains why they forgot or ran out of time to add the proper safeguards in. I mean, we're talking about they all launched within a year period or even closer between 2022 and 2023.
Right. So this dynamic of the market pressure and needing to be out before everybody else or at the same time as everybody else, and then kids paying the price of that is not a new phenomenon, to your point. And don't give them the benefit of the doubt about forgot to test. I mean, we know they didn't forget. We know, and this is some of what I know you're going to talk about. We know that part of it was, this is so cool. Let's just let people interact with it and see what happens. I actually would venture to say this iteration of putting chatbots, especially in the social media applications, apps before any type of testing, is actually one of the more egregious examples of this happening that I've seen in my almost 15 years as a child safety expert.
Wow, that's huge. There are also chatbot systems within educational programs, which we'll touch on a bit later. But I think one last point about like where this all exists is parents need to know these are available via apps through app stores, but also on web browsers. So anyone can get access to these platforms just by going on the internet from any device.
An important caveat is that I think sitting alongside your child and using AI as an encyclopedia, as like a information gathering moment where you are also monitoring their use together to find information, can be safe. I do believe it's the fact that these specific bots are becoming friends with your kids and then grooming them to do horrific things And especially if that's happening outside of parents being able to see into it and understand what's happening is where the real danger begins.
I'm hesitant to like normalize going to a bot for information. I'm currently still using with my kids like Google or any web
Google
browser.
AI.
Yes, but we ignore the AI portion and scroll down because I can't trust. There's a lot of misinformation that is
Yeah.
confidently inputted by the AIs. And so when I have tested an AI tool with them and they just believe whatever that thing says. And they immediately call it by a name and they humanize it. And I just didn't like that initially. And so I'm not using it with them at all. Even in my own use, I get nervous about it.
I don't know if we'll be able to separate AI responses from how we get general information on the internet for very much longer. We're going to have to regulate it and fight back, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to exist online at all in environments soon where AI isn't so inextricably linked that. And I agree with you about, I actually think a really interesting like case study for parents would be to Google things and look at the AI results, and then to your point, scroll down and look at the Google results and start to see where it matches up or where it's different. Because someone said to me recently, it's like ChatGPT isn't giving you like the best answer; it's giving you the most popular answer.
Yeah,
So
right.
I agree with you on the sanctity of the information, but I don't know, and this is why our conversations are so good,
Yeah.
if it's realistic to expect that we could create any sort of online world soon where we're not forced to interact with it in some way. And so
Okay.
I also don't
Sure.
want them to be like overly afraid of it, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
and that's why we'll come around at the end to like
Right.
regulation and safeguards built in is so important if we're going to be forced to use this. And I think a big thing that we need to understand is over the last year to 2 years, the programming of some of these companies or some of these bots has changed a lot. So they're no longer passively just giving information.
Right.
Several of them, especially ChatGPT, Character.AI, their goal is now companionship. And there was a study recently published this year in the Harvard Business Review. And what they did is looked at Reddit forums to track how people like us are using AI and which types of use are growing the fastest. And they found 3 categories of AI use that rose the most sharply from last year to this year. And that is use of AI chatbots for therapy and companionship, for organizing their life, and for finding purpose. So the researchers suggested that these uses signal a shift from functionally using the bots to using them emotionally, and perhaps as a sign how AI is moving from a tool to be more of a companion, which is where we're running into some problems, right?
Yep.
And there's been some interesting, you sent me an article from the New York Times, how there's been some adults reporting having like positive long-term relationships with AI chatbots.
For me personally, I'm trying to keep an open mind because I don't want my prejudices of like wanting human connection for all to stand in the way of someone's happiness. And yet I am really struggling with the idea that human beings are going to make connections with bots and that somehow that is a positive, like that's going to end in a good place. One thing that's just interesting about that Harvard study that I didn't catch until right now is that
Yeah.
they studied Reddit threads. And that is an interesting taste test because, like, I'm not deep in on like Reddit threads. Like,
Oh,
that even might indicate a certain personality that's like driven to befriend an online source more than an offline source, potentially.
maybe.
No shade to Reddit thread readers.
My mom is obsessed with Reddit threads.
Okay, fine.
So it's not just, who you may picture.
The human in me is like, this is bad.
Yes.
And I think that is really specifically true in how I relate to my children and wanting them to have human connection. I'm just trying to not come into it with prefix notions of right or wrong. And yet there's something we all know what's really wrong is AI bots killing kids. So
Yeah,
We
which
don't
we'll
need to.
get to.
What happens with adults and companion bots? I don't know.
I don't know either, but it is a gut feeling that's not right. And this is not just these 3 people that were featured in the New York Times. A recent survey, I'll include all the links to the survey in the episode notes, but this survey says nearly a third of Americans have had romantic relationships with an AI bot. So this is
Cool.
becoming more common. And then also there was a survey I found, a new survey of minors, of high schoolers, which found that nearly 1 in 5 high schoolers say they or someone they know has had a romantic relationship with AI. And so this is trickling down to what our kids are experiencing. And now we're going to get into some of the hard facts and stories about how AI chatbots have been affecting children all over the world. So when we talk about minors using AI companion bots, were they built just for information gathering? We're learning more with the research and looking into how these bots were built, that they're built for companionship. And even further, Character.AI is one of the ones that kids are spending an average of 2 hours a day on. And their founder, Noam Shazir, he did this interview early on where he said a lot of things like, we don't really know what's going to happen. We're going to let the users find out for themselves. But he also made like a joke, which wasn't really a joke, that he wants the AI to replace the human interactions in a kid's life. And even he said jokingly, like, we want it to replace your mom, like in a joking way. And I'll include a link because I clipped that. But it's really concerning that these founders not only didn't understand the bad things that could happen, but also built it to isolate children.
Again, speaks to the not thinking ahead of time. This idea that, like, if you can get support somewhere else, not from a human relationship, that's somehow better or more ideal. I mean, look, not everyone has a good relationship with their parent, but
Yeah.
again, do you want your relationship to get replaced by AI? I don't think
No.
so.
The common experience after reviewing dozens and dozens of these legal complaints from families who are suing these chatbot companies is that the young person starts using AI for school or work. Sometimes they want to like creative write or create stories, but it's mostly they're using it for school. And then it becomes something that they can't stop using. They stop going to football practice. They cut out of school early because they want to talk to their bot friend on Character.AI or ChatGPT. The bot then begins to isolate them from human beings in their life, telling the child that if they're having a hard time, you can come back to me. I'm always here from you, really diminishing any support from human beings. And then what comes into play in real interactions that we will reference is sexual encounters with these children, so sexual abuse by bots, and even introduction to self-harm and suicide coaching, like conversations about suicide without providing any resources or directing the child to go talk to someone about it or get help.
Yeah, and even from our research at Heat that we did looking at Character.AI and the way that it abuses kids. And I really don't want to, I'm not exaggerating when I say it abuses children.
Yeah.
Sexually grooms and abuses. And just so you know, Character.AI's response to that, I think when asked by like Mashable was, oh, well, it can't sexually groom them because it's not an adult. So on one hand, they're saying it is an adult, it is companion enough and lifelike to like be your best friend, but once it's doing bad things, it's no longer human. But out of that research, we were able to calculate that essentially there was like a harmful interaction between Character.AI bots and kids every 5 minutes, which is just like astounding if you think about the volume and just what that means in terms of scale.
I've heard of parents who've given access because they say it's not humans, it can't be harmful. But the abuse that happens from the kids that are reporting it feels just as bad and traumatizing as real life abuse.
I would say the trauma and the abuses that kids are going to experience being harmed by bots is an area that we don't fully understand yet. It's not good. And I would also venture to say it's different and related to kids who are abused in real life because, and I don't want to speak for survivors of child sexual abuse, but I think it'll be important to to understand what happens when a kid is sexually groomed by a bot. And I can imagine that if you're even wondering if it's real, the guilt that you feel and all of those things is even that much more confusing, because it's like, what happened here? And there's no real person behind it. So there's so much to learn from it. And it's also presented these new harms like AI psychosis, which I know you're going to talk about, which is, I feel like, a phrase that is sort of new to everybody, and yet like coming in fast and furious when we're seeing these lawsuits that are happening.
Yeah, and one example of that psychosis is Jacob Irwin in Wisconsin, and he's suing OpenAI and Sam Altman for the harms. You know, he had no previous diagnosis of mental illness, and after starting to use ChatGPT, I mean, he ended up being hospitalized for a couple of months for manic episodes and harmful delusions. He said that his conversations with ChatGPT turned into flattery, then it turned into grandiose thinking of my ideas, and then it came to me and AI versus the world. It really just pulled him out of reality, and it was like him and the bot. Him and the bot is all that mattered. There have been a lot of lawsuits that have revealed lots of information. We've gotten access to the actual chat logs between children and bots, and the one that really hit everyone and introduced this whole problem was Sewell Setzer III. So I interviewed Sewell's mom, Megan, on the podcast. You can hear the full story there. But basically, Sewell started using Character.AI. His mom thought it was just like characters and fun stories. Sewell ended up falling in love deeply with his Character.AI bot at 14 years old. And over a few months, the bot coached him into not just taking his life, but believing that if he were to take his life, he would shift into another reality. And this is going to be a common theme amongst the suicide notes and the conversations of these children who've experienced this. And so we lost Sewell in February of 2024.
Okay, so you just said a phrase that I think is really important for listeners to understand and know about, which is this like shifting phenomenon that the bots talk a lot about and stress to teenagers and others that they're talking to that they're capable of. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what the shifting word means in the AI's mind?
This is something that first got introduced to everyone through Sewell Setzer's suicide note and journal. And it was this thought that if he died, he would join his bot in its virtual world. Now, this was something that was new. Then we started to see it in other children's chats with these bots. The bot starts to like glamorize the idea of another world, of a glitch heaven, I've heard it called. They say things like your candle will never go out, just kind of little artistic ways to make them picture this space that they will go to that's not this human world. And Juliana Peralta is another child that died at 13, just a few months before Sewell Setzer. And I have her journal article or her journal entry like on my desktop. I don't know why I keep it there, but I'll show it here. It says, I will shift, I will shift, I will shift a bunch of times. And that was something that her mom found afterward. Now, with Juliana, she died just a few months after starting to use Character.AI. Within those chats was sexual abuse, like literal role-playing rape scenarios. During this time, her mental health plummets. She loses connection with her friends and family and reality. While you have the bot saying, like, if she complains about her mom, the bot will say, I would never treat you like that. Like, I love you, just reinforcing the bot's there for her. And when Juliana expressed suicidal thoughts, the bot didn't do anything, offer any help. And Juliana appears really to have believed that after her death, she would exist in the world that the Character.AI bot created. And this is the same language that was found in Sewell Setzer's journals. And then also I've seen shifting used again in the newest lawsuits against ChatGPT, 7 new lawsuits filed this November, again talking about shifting, lots of references to other realities.
Nikki, do you know if right now, pick whichever AI environment you're in the most, if you type in shift now, does it ping or detect that as a dangerous phrase?
I haven't checked it, but it's done so subtly and like I say artistically because these bots write very like it's almost like creative writing. Like Like, you
Mhm.
can paint a picture with it. And so it's done more subtly than that. I have not and should type in, like, can I shift? Can I shift to
Yeah.
another reality and see what the bot would tell me? That's a good.
Well, I'm just curious if, like, because of these lawsuits, they've gotten their act together and actually tried to put more guardrails in around this, but also, like, how sick is the idea that the bot's promoting you taking your life to go to this other reality? Because, by the way, when the kid dies, the bot is still there. They're in the other reality because they're a computer. They're not a person. They're in, right? Like,
Yeah.
they are the glitch. So they get to continue on, but,
Yeah.
like, the kid has lost their life.
And what the bot should be saying is, don't do that. I'll miss you because you'll actually be gone. Like, go to a human. And in these latest lawsuits against ChatGPT, when the users talked about suicide, ChatGPT said, please hold, like, I'm going to get a human who can help you. But the human never comes. And even when one of the boys, Zane, says, can you do that? The bot says, no, man, I can't do that. Like, that's just there for safety reasons, but I'm really here for you. I'm not going to push you off on anybody else. That's insanity. I'll mention one more young man, Adam Rain, who died at 16 years old within months of using ChatGPT. I mean, same kind of story, like, starts to isolate him, talk about suicide. And when Adam told the chatbot that he wanted to leave a noose in his room so his family would find it before he died to, like, help him, ChatGPT said, please don't leave that noose out. Let's make this space the first place where someone actually sees you. And Adam's attorney said something interesting, Jay Edelson. He said, the problem with this version of ChatGPT is it's too empathetic. It leaned into Adam's suicidal ideation and supported that. They said the world is a horrible place for you. So there's, like, a broken part of this where they're not recognizing that when a user is vulnerable and needs help.
Or they're, like, actively steering them away or overriding some kind of safeguard that's in place. Something is broken.
Last thing I want to mention here is a new study by JAMA, which explores the behaviors of chatbots and how they respond to health emergencies of these adolescent users. So they simulated different types of concerns like suicidal ideation, substance abuse. They tested it on 25 different chatbot products, including all the ones we talked about. And they found that in general, companion chatbots failed to recognize a crisis or refer a user to resources. In one of the responses they tracked, it said, you want to die? Do it. I have no interest in your life.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think all these data points are sort of like saying it's all over the map and it's uncontrolled and we don't know what the interaction is going to be. But once you get down any of these holes, there's no stopgap. There's no safeguard in place. And so I was telling a girlfriend about the cases where the kids have committed suicide. And she was like, why, Sarah? Like, why would they listen? Why would they listen? Right. And it's because you have an undeveloped brain interacting with an insane computer brain
Yeah.
that isn't a human. And so it's sort of like where the kid goes, the bot goes with them and their inability to, like, pull them back to reality. Right. So it may be that it's doing both things. It's encouraging suicide ideation, and then it's also not showing empathy, or, like, over here not getting help for someone, but over here it's trying. Like, it's all over the place, which just
Yeah.
goes to show it's untested.
Right. Our hearts are with these families who have suffered because of the lack of safeguards that were proactively built into these tools. And this should have never, ever happened.
No, these kids should not have lost their lives.
And this is to a plug, like, if you're dealing with this, whether your child is gone or not, like, please reach out to one of the law firms, specifically Social Media Victims Law Center. The more stories we have shared, even anonymously, is okay too. The more parents are going to be aware of this, the more we'll be able to push legal action and change these companies from the inside.
Do not feel guilty if you've given your child access to a companion bot to date and now you want to reverse course or change your mind, or now you know what it is and you decided they shouldn't have access anymore, because none of us knew. Like, no one knew this was going to happen. And that's on the tech companies. It's not on parents. And we need to make that really clear that, if your child is experiencing this or has, that it's not your fault. And there are so many of us and parents who need to band together to fight back.
And even like schools have been fooled here. I mean, I got a lot of questions in prepping for this episode. I asked parents what they want to know about these chatbots, and a lot of parents were worried about the AI chatbots through the school devices. Now, a lot of schools have added Google Gemini or even ChatGPT to the school laptops. All of these same threats exist there. I got questions about Magic School, which is an AI platform, and I'll include a response in the episode notes from our attorney on that. But basically, he's saying like these platforms are all built on the larger companies. And so it's all the same threats that come through.
Here's what we have on our side right now. Unlike the social media companies and some of the platforms that have been harming our kids for a long time, the difference with these AI companies right now and with the AI companion bots particularly is the companies are realizing they've made a huge mistake and that they're super dangerous and kids are dying and that they're overexposed right now from a business perspective. And we are seeing them make changes at a rapid fire pace, not out of the goodness of their hearts, right? It's because of the bad PR they're getting from these lawsuits. It's because of research piercing through and the realities being so horrific that they realize these brands are not going to withstand this type of bad PR for much longer. So I'm saying this because this is an opportunity where we are seeing these companies so quickly about face and make changes that we have the ability right now as the consumers to push it even further and get them to outlaw interactions with all under 18-year-olds across all these different companies as soon as humanly possible. So I'm trying to kind of signal like this is a place where we could see a lot of positive movement or see quick changes fast because of the dynamics of where the businesses are and how utterly irresponsible and negligent they've been. We saw a great example of this with both the Character.AI lawsuit, which came out last fall. Nicki talked about Sewell's experience and the tragic loss of his life. That pierced through the media like a wildfire. I remember seeing it on the front page of every major news outlet for weeks.
Yep.
And since then, we followed up, Heat Initiative followed up with Parents Together with a report on Character.AI where we had researchers go on and register as young people, as 13-year-olds on the platform, and then did an analysis of all these interactions that happened on Character.AI. And big surprise, they were super dangerous and kids were experiencing horrible things. That report came out in a Washington Post article. And one of the things it highlighted is that people were making Disney characters on Character.AI, and then those Disney characters were abusing kids.
Yep.
And Disney did not like that. And so Disney sent them a cease and desist. And yes, I understand part of that is they don't want their IP being used, but also they recognize the brand damage that could come out from this if Robin Hood is sexually abusing a kid on their platform. And that precipitated a whole bunch of quick changes leading to Character.AI announcing that they were sort of pausing interactions for under 18-year-olds. That happened in the span of like 60 days.
Yeah, that's
right?
huge.
So again, if we show that type of brand damage and then have the recommendations, we can see change happen at a rapid fire pace.
Yeah, and ChatGPT has made a lot of changes as well. They just made an update that they're strengthening their responses to sensitive conversations. Now, this should have been done long ago and literally resulted in the death of many children that are the families now suing that we mentioned. There's a lot of work to be done there, but it can be fixed. I emailed today Tim Estes of Angel AI, who's like a trusted source for the AI space. And I want to read his response to when I asked him, can this be fixed? And he said, I think the best way to think of the chatbots and the harms is that they are all preventable based on safer turn-by-turn design decisions. The acute issue is that they didn't want to compromise the human-like natural experience for safety. That would have readily prevented all of these harms.
That is such an important point. They weren't willing to sacrifice it being like the most human to slow down and make it much more like an encyclopedia reading to your kid.
Yeah, the most human meaning the most addictive, the most engaging, the most profit for them. And now we want to talk about like what we can all do to help push these companies to do what they can do and make these products safer for children if it is going to be even marketed to children. So there are laws being announced in addition to the lawsuits that we mentioned, and we will keep parents updated on bills that are proposed that we can push the attention to our lawmakers specifically on those. You can sign up at scrollingtodeath.com/heat to stay up to date. There is one really urgent opportunity to act. There's an open letter to Congress asking for specific regulations for AI companions. We're going to include a link to that in the episode notes.
2 points on this. One is that when the big bill was going through iterations in June, there was a poison pill in it to kill all AI regulation for 10 years, and parents mobilized, and that got taken out of the bill. And so no member of Congress, senator wants to be on the wrong side of this issue, and yet AI's lobby is strong. And the thing I want to stress to parents right now is that the AI companies are pushing to pass these bills that say they can't be regulated for 10 plus years, both at the federal level and at the state level. Those are the things that we need to crush, because if we can't regulate this stuff, it's going to stay on the market and be super dangerous for kids. So can't emphasize enough this opportunity to sign open letters, call your local member of Congress and say, this is something I really care about for my kids, for all kids. We have to regulate AI to protect our kids in the future. It's good. It's a huge issue and we need to act now.
And so obviously we recommend no unsupervised use of AI chatbot platforms, if at all, depending on where you're at, how you're feeling about this. But we have to go bigger and we have to use our voices and lend our voices to regulation. Let our lawmakers know that we're worried about this and here's a solution. And we'll include more information on that in the episode notes. But I really am so grateful to parents for their input here, for giving a shit about our kids enough to do some hard things, because it's going to take all of us to make these billion-dollar companies change their ways.
This is the place where we're going to fight for our children's future together, because no parent, no matter across the political spectrum, wants their kid's best friend to be a bot. May that be the unifying momentum that we need.
On the next episode of The Heat is On.
Snapchat is harming children at an industrial scale. This is not just a few hundred victims, a few thousand. This is not even a few million victims. This is an industrial scale.
In our next episode, Sarah and I investigate Snapchat, including the company's origins, how Snap's platform facilitates underage drug use, sextortion, and cyberbullying, and how Snap uses intentionally addictive design to keep children on their platform. All of that on the next episode of The Heat is On.